not only is this guy not an expert in my field or my particular
Yeah.
situation, he doesn't even know what my challenge is. And he's helped me to come up with a next step. Because you trust these people and because you have no corporate mask or suit of armor, you left that outside, you will just come with the most important stuff for you.
All right. Welcome. We're live. Andy, thank you for joining this first conversation. At HCC, you know that we are training transformational coaches. We've been doing it for 10 years. I've been building up a tribe, and we're trying to bring best practices, powerful models from the world of psychology into coaching. In the process, we always look for the next good thing, the next best thing. And when I spoke to you about your process, your group peer mentoring coaches process, that just struck me as gold. It's like something that I want to introduce to my tribe, that I want to share to professional coaches and people who are open to new learning opportunities. So with that as background, I've invited you to join me, but you will also share this recording, this podcast with your network. So it's going to be a two-way conversation, but mostly me interrogating you a little bit about who you are, what your process is. So welcome. Thank you for joining. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. Henry, you and I have known each other for a few years now. We always have very enjoyable conversations. So how did I get here? Who am I? My name's Andy Follows. Geographically, I'm sitting in North Hampshire in the UK, about 50 miles west of London. I was born in the northwest of England. Looking back, I can see I've been experimenting. For a while, it was all about, can I get security? Can I afford a family and a home and some of the basic material things? I got to the point 10 years ago, just over, where I was the managing director of BMW Financial Services in New Zealand. And I got a call from someone I trusted who said, would you like to come back to the UK and help set up Tesla Financial Services? And I thought, okay, well, it's not going to be long term for me. This is a stepping stone to help me leave BMW and get home. It'll be an interesting stepping stone. I'm going to learn a lot. And so I came home. I spent a couple of years doing that. And then the stars aligned and it was time for me to leave. End of 2016, I set up my business. And I knew it was going to involve coaching. I realised now I did not have much of it figured out at all. It was a feeling, a sense. I was missing something. I had a role model I'd met along the way called Ed Epley. I'd met him in 2006. He was a trusted advisor to senior leaders, CEOs and senior leaders. And that's when I first discovered that kind of job existed. And I liked what he did. And I thought when I grow up, I'd like to be Ed Epley. I first had the privilege to be exposed to coaching in about 1997 or 98. So I'd have been 29, 30 years old. Right. And I was at Rover Group. It was part of BMW. It was my first entry point into BMW. My manager got us along to an in-house 3-day coaching. And they were using Sir John Whitmore.
Some of the early gurus
model
of coaching.
Yeah, so it was his I'm not sure if he was involved in the business, but it was his model and framework, and they trained some internal trainers. And we spent 3 days, and that was my initial exposure to the power of coaching. And a couple of things happened during that session. So what happened was, one of the exercises we did was coaching each other as participants in this training to pitch or chip a golf ball into a bucket. Now, I am not a golfer. I found myself using the methodology of raising awareness for the individual and getting them to focus. I could help someone improve their ability to chip a golf ball into a bucket. Wow. This was fascinating. Okay, so I don't need to be an expert on the subject in order to help the person improve. So that was the first realization. And then I think the last day, and the facilitator was at the front. And he said, right, I asked you all to bring along a challenge that you're wrestling with at the moment. I want to give you an opportunity to be coached through that. I'm going to do you all at once. I'm going to do you all at the same time. So we all had a pad in front of us, and he said, okay, I'm going to do this in silence, but I'm going to ask you questions. And he asked us first of all, okay, write down what your challenge is, the topic that you've brought. And then he took us through a series of questions. I don't know, probably about 20, 25 questions over the space of maybe half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour. And he paused to let us write our answers down. And at the end of that, by the end, we had all reflected on our challenge. We'd followed the GROW model, so we'd worked out what it was we wanted to achieve. We'd explored the current situation, the reality. We'd thought about some options of what we could do. He'd tested us on how committed we were, and we'd decided on an action that we were going to take. At that point, I thought, wow, not only is this guy not an expert in my field or my particular situation, he doesn't even know what my challenge is, and he's helped me to come up with a next step. So after that, I thought, okay, as a manager, I am going to have a go at this. And I did that over the next years. And then when it came to setting up my business, pretty much at this, when I resigned from Tesla, I was already doing a formal coaching certification, because I wanted to, whilst I'd been coaching as a manager for probably 20 years maybe, and I wanted to go along, I wanted to be exposed to different methodologies of coaching, different ideas, so that I could have a better idea of what the range was and what the available tools were. And I wanted an opportunity to practice in front of people who knew what they were doing, and to get feedback to be able to find out whether what I did was genuinely useful. I knew it had worked in the workplace. The other thing I did, which I think is as part of my evolution to who I am now, early in my career, I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I had taken that on board and practiced that. And I think it's important, this fact that not only do we learn stuff, but we apply it. So I'd been applying the 7 habits as a manager. So this was the first time in my career that I'd had an opportunity to, I had the authority and the budget to say, right, I'm going to put the whole team through the 7 habits program. And we brought in the New Zealand agent for Franklin Covey. I said to them, look, I'd like you to roll this out across my team, and I'd like you to also make me a facilitator. And I had a manager at the time, Alan Crooks, who was running the region Asia Pacific, and he was aware of this and highly supportive. And as soon as I'd finished, he said, right, I'd like you to come and roll it out in Australia. So as well as running the business in New Zealand, I became a facilitator for the 7 Habits program in Asia Pacific for BMW. So I started off in Australia. I'd go once a month to Australia, and I'd run a 3-day program. Some of those colleagues said, we want to do what Andy does. We said, great, you do that. And Alan said, right, Andy, I've got you a gig in, I think it was Japan. He was moving me around the region, and I was delivering the program. So I got plenty of hours on my feet facilitating. So there are these different threads coming. There's the coaching thread, there's the facilitation thread, there's the love of learning, and then applying, and the being happy to practice and get out of my comfort zone. That's been important to where I am now.
And you've got some pretty powerful mental models there. John Whitmore, GROW model, having had that powerful coaching experience, and then Stephen Covey's work, The 7 Habits, is timeless. It's still honored and still respected by people, changing lives and helping them to live more productive, more satisfying lives. So you've been informed and been fed and by nurtured by quite a few good models and intellectual stimulations along the way.
I was 5 years ago, just over 5 years ago, we started. So Alan Crooks, the manager I mentioned, carried on being a mentor. He's still a mentor of mine today. We were having a conversation probably somewhere between 5 and 6 years ago. And he had exposure to these kind of groups where CEOs come together and support each other. And he said, why don't you do something like that? And he told me about how it works. And I said, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Then we spoke a few days later, or maybe, I don't know, a couple of weeks later. And he said, how are you getting on? And I said, well, I love the idea. I've got no resistance to the idea. I get it. It sounds great. But I'm struggling I've been through my network, I've been through all my LinkedIn contacts, and I'm struggling to find a large enough group or enough people of the right caliber or the right, to be peers. They need to be equal levels of experience and role. That's where I'm falling down. And he said, okay, leave it with me. And he came back about 48 hours later and he said, right, I've got 10 people. So he's the kind of guy, because he was the regional director. He was a fantastic regional director. So he'd had 2,000 people. He'd also run the Australian operation, and he was dearly loved by the people he'd led. So he basically contacted 10 people who used to work for him and said, we're running this pilot. They weren't all CEOs at this stage, but they were all people who knew each other. They trusted each other. They'd worked together. So they had an existing bond between them, and they had experience of each other. And that's where we kind of tested out the concept. And I think we did 6 months of monthly calls. That's going well. And then there came the conversation about, well, I kind of need to commercialize this, because it's not supposed to be a hobby for me. And that's when we got a lot of drop off. So when you take something that you've given people free of charge, and you ask them to pay for it, they might not have done it in the first place if they'd known it was going to cost. The other thing was, in the back of my mind, or not, was this idea, well, yeah, but all of these people knew each other. So if this worked, but it worked because these people, or did it only work because these people had an existing trusting relationship? I guess I'm a comfortable experimenter. Honestly, I think it's the single most helpful thing, is just figure it out and make mistakes, and growth mindset. That's
absolutely golden advice.
Yeah. Don't mind looking foolish. Just learn. There's no failure. There's just results. You ran a good experiment. You got some results. Brilliant. So I thought I'll try again. And I spoke to someone I'd met at Tesla, someone I'd connected strongly with at Tesla, Annie Wechter. And I was chatting to Annie, and I said, I'm doing this ex-BMW cohort, and I'm wondering if we could set up a Tesla one, because I knew that it worked with people who knew each other. So we got another group together of ex-Tesla people, and we ran it with them. So it worked really well. Connection was great. Again, difficult when it comes to paying for it. So I've now done 2 free pilots, but I still haven't mixed up people who didn't know each other. So I need to try one where people don't already know each other. Is that going to work? I then thought I'm going to put one more group together, and they're going to be people who don't already know each other, and we're going to see if we get the same sense of connection and the same value. I went looking for, I think, 8 people, and I ended up with 12, because obviously you ask a lot of people, and then they all come back and think, oh, hang on, I've already got 8, but now you've come back. Yeah, okay. So we ended up with 2 groups of 6. And one of those groups was my first, I'd say, one that didn't work. That was partly because people either couldn't really commit, so they weren't showing up enough, or they were at a time in their life that was so challenging and they really weren't ready to talk about it. But they didn't have anything else to talk about because this was, all consuming, and they didn't want to burden the group with this. And so they had reasons for not wanting to do it. So that group soon went from 6 to 3, and then it starts to get a bit too small. The other one was great. I'll tell you what they do, and then we'll talk about why they do. All right. So once a month for 2 hours, they join a Zoom call with 6 to 8 other leaders who, it's the same group every time. It's not a drop-in centre. We put a group together, we put a team together, and they join a call for 2 hours. It's the same time every month. So it'll be, say, the second Thursday of the month, 8:30 a.m. UK or 5 p.m. UK. That means we can cover everything from the west coast of the US to Melbourne. They join, we check in, how's everybody, how well equipped is each person to actually engage for the next couple of hours, which I think is a really valuable thing to do in any meeting. So how well equipped are people to engage in the next couple of hours? Have we got them for the duration of the session? Anything we need to be aware of? Then we'll have a short content piece, just 15 minutes, sort of thought-provoking bit of content, concept, model, idea. And then we get into the most of the session is a round table, where I'll work, as the facilitator, I'll work my way around the group, and I'll say, okay, Henry, so let's have a look. Last time we were together, you updated us that this is what was going on, and your commitment was that you were going to do this and this between sessions. How did you get on? How's it going now, and how did you get on? So it's accountability, but it's a very supportive. And then they'll update us, yes, so I did that and this happened, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll say, okay, Henry, so what can the team help you with this month? What would you like the team's input on this month? And you will have come along with some thoughts that I'm going to share. This is what I want to share with the team this month.
Okay.
And because you trust these people, and because you have no corporate mask or suit of armor, you left that outside, you will just come with the most important stuff for you right now and say, this is what I've got going on. And then I'll say, okay, after 3 or 5 minutes of you positioning, I'll say, okay, Henry, thanks very much. It's okay now if I invite the team to support. And I'll ask the team to start with questions only. Okay. I'll say, okay, team, questions first, please. And that way we can get as many different perspectives, have a couple of rounds of people asking questions only. And I'll say, Henry, remember, you don't have to answer these questions. In fact, it's a bit of a waste of time if you do answer these questions, because you already know the answers. We don't necessarily need to know the answers. It's not beneficial to you to share it with us. We just want to give you some things to think about. So like a hot seat coaching exercise where you get to take away a lot of questions.
I'm coming in, I'm a CEO or a GM or a startup person. I'm walking into this room and I'm telling you what I'm struggling with.
Yes.
Why would I do that? And why would I take the risk with a group of strangers as well as Andy to... What compels people to come to the group or to even contemplate joining?
How do you really get this to happen? So we work very intentionally on connection. So I mentioned earlier, I'm a big believer in knowledge that you don't do anything with is wasted. How are you going to use this week? Let's get out there and practice. So that's the connection, connecting theory and reality, and also connecting the people. Content is making sure that we introduce new ideas that are relevant. So it's not, okay, in session 1 we're going to introduce this, and in session 2 we're going to introduce that. It's whatever shows up during the sessions. Okay, I came across some, last month we talked about this. I think Patrick Lencioni's model of the ideal team player might be quite interesting. So let's have a look at that. So there's a short bit of content just to keep people growing and learning and adding new tools to their toolkit. There's coaching. So typically what I'll do is let the peers ask their questions, and then I'll say, have people, okay guys, I know you're bursting to give Henry some suggestions. Now, Henry, do you mind, would you like to hear some suggestions? And the
so
colleagues...
I can benefit from suggestions and from some fellow journey mates.
Absolutely. So it's mentoring rather than, it's not peer coaching, if you like, it's peer mentoring. So for me, the distinction between coaching and mentoring is coaching is helping me draw out what's inside. It's helping you rather to draw out what's most useful, give you clarity, help you use the tools you've got and the knowledge you've got and the experience you've got to work out what's the best thing for you to do. Mentoring is when I also bring stuff I've done. It's
a bit of your life experience or insights or...
Yeah, it's more from me.
I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, it's things like if I know something that you don't know, I cannot draw this out of you. You have you do. It's not in there. So when people are ready, when we say, okay, now would you be open to some suggestions? And they're like, yes, please. Some help would be great. And that can be people saying, yeah, we had this last year or last month, and this is what we did. I've got a spreadsheet, I've got a template, I've got a slide deck. I'll send you, and we can have a separate call if you want. We can have a one-to-one. So these are the sort of conversations people have. They'll say, do you want to have a side conversation?
We'll take it offline.
We'll take it offline. It's that kind of very helpful, very practical support.
So you're bringing some expertise. You're bringing the best of both worlds. It's coaching and mentoring together and a bit of teaching. But I'm thinking of my clients, and I'm thinking of the strongman CEO, of the solo leader, the strong woman, the strong man. And I've been told to my face by HR and by leaders, is like, this is not a thing. I don't make myself vulnerable in front of groups. There's reputational risk. There's personal risk. Who on earth signs up for these programs? Because I know once they're in, they're going to smile and they're going to thrive. But how do you cross that first barrier? Or what type of a person would try this out and stay?
It is important to pick the right people. So I select people. Yeah. And when I have one-to-one conversations, people I make people comfortable, and they tend to talk to me openly. And if I sense they're struggling or they're not ready for that, then it's not time for them to join a team, because it wouldn't be good for them. They wouldn't get the experience, and they wouldn't be being the teammate that I need them to be. So I start off. It's in the selection. Marshall Goldsmith. I watched. He's a big, very famous coach. I remember him saying that the secret to being a great coach is getting the best clients. There's a little bit of making sure you've got the right leaders in the room.
You're not putting an advert in the South China Morning Post. You're not advertising on Facebook Marketplace. Come and join my group. You are handpicking them. You are building a relationship with them. Yeah. And then you're inviting them if you feel that they might benefit or they might be ready for this. So this is much more involved than I thought.
Yes, and let's be fair about this then. Plenty of those people. Obviously, the first team, I knew everybody, and I will have peopled teams with people from my network as well. So if there's people you already know and have a relationship with and trust you, and can be open, that's going to be a good start. When you get it going, it is so joyful and valuable and rewarding for everybody. So that's the starting point, is selecting people who are emotionally mature enough to show up. You can't have those people who are not ready. So that's the first step, is in the selection. And then we deliberately work on connection throughout the early sessions. So we will work with a very gentle exercise. Just bring along a couple of slides, mostly photos, illustrate your professional journey and one to tell us about you personally. So basically, it's 2 slides of photographs. You choose what you put in there. You choose how much you want to reveal. And it just starts off at that level of, okay, I'm going to show you my career, the brands I've worked with and the roles I've had. And then I'm going to show you my family and my dog and where I like to go on holiday and my boat, my sports team that I support. And for some people, for many people, for way too many people, they've never seen this before. I'm not talking about people who've never met before. I'm talking about people who work together, who've worked together for years. Yeah. They have never seen this level of detail about their colleague. And
it's a safe way to do self-disclosure. It's like I can structure it, I can control the feed into the public domain.
And I'll go first, or I let the leader go first. But I coach the leader beforehand that they will only go as far as you go. People say, yes, but I've already prepared. What if they've already prepared their slides? And there's one thing putting a photo on a slide. When you stand up to talk to that slide, you can choose how far what you go, what you say. Yeah. So if your CEO has been up there and he's really gone quite a long way, you can think, and I've had people say, I wasn't actually going to say this, but here we go.
I see that all the time, is that it warms people up. And if one person starts opening up, then especially if the top dog starts opening up, it does build some momentum. I want to have all of these things. I want to put my 2 slides of photos on there, but what is your sales pitch to me? What do you invite me to come and do? Because I already know everything. I have an MBA. I've been an executive for 20 years in 5 multinationals. What is the reason for joining this group?
I'd say I'm a hopeless salesperson. I have been at the top of an organization, albeit a small one. And I know that it gets lonely. I know that you can't tell the stuff that's potentially keeping you up at night. You can't share it with the team you lead. And you get to a point where you don't actually necessarily want to go to your boss and say, I don't really understand this, or I don't quite know what to do about this. And it's really helpful to have a group of people who by now you know and trust and respect their experience and their diverse perspectives, to be able to come in and say, well, it's pretty tough at the moment, actually. This is going on and I'm not sure what to do about this. And to feel that's okay. You're not supposed to have all the answers. You do not have to do this alone. So I describe to people how the session works, and I say that you'll have an opportunity, whatever it is that's bothering you. And please bring the most important stuff, not the sanitized, oh, I feel comfortable sharing this one because I don't look too bad. I've had leaders say to me at the beginning, I didn't really want to bring things that made me look like I didn't know what I was doing.
A bit of whitewashing or filtering, yeah.
Yeah, but now I don't have to. And that's fair. People aren't going to rock up on day one, and because I've told them this is how it is, they're going to be okay with it. They need to come.
From my side is I've invited some of my executive coaching clients, and they say, that sounds really great. I would love to be part of a support community, but I'm not going to undress in public. I'm not going to make myself vulnerable. So for me, it's like, I've tried this before, I've pitched this, and I'm sure the people watching and listening will want to know the same thing. Is I am curious. I want to create this learning group, this growth group, support group. What is the pitch to get them over the door or into the door?
I think in public was the bit that stood out. I'm not going to undress in public. This isn't in public. For whatever reason, they do not feel this is in public. This is in private. So what I do, I'll answer the question. I'll try and answer the question in the sense that you have said to me in this conversation, you would love to be part of one of these teams. Yep. I have told you about it in the same way that I tell other leaders. I've had the same conversation with you that I have with them, and like you have, they say, yeah, I'd love to do that. Would say, Henry, I've got a space, possibly 2 spaces in a group that meets at 8:30 UK, which would work for you. Let's have a conversation and let's see if I'd love to have you in one of those teams. It'd be fantastic. So that's the sales process, if you like.
So you're selling by explaining to people by storytelling. You're relating, storytelling, sharing the experiences, and not the Xerox process, the benefits instead of the how-to and the process.
I haven't overanalyzed it, but I suspect people thinking, oh, God, it really would be nice to have somewhere to go and some people to talk to, and to not have all this to do by myself. We then do other things to build connection. Slides, that sort of week 1 stuff or session 1 stuff. And then over the next 3 or 4 sessions, we go a bit deeper with individuals. And we get them to share some challenges they've lived through.
All right. You're starting light, then going in deeper and giving them the opportunity to share a bit more.
We don't need to go into how we do that, but yeah, we take them a bit deeper. The result is that, let me give you a couple of examples. So obviously, here we are. We've got we end up with our 5th group. So remember, we'd set up 4 pilots. The 5th group, we start with commercial. There's no I'm not going to walk anyone up. It's right. If you're in this team, it's a commercial thing. I've already tested it. I know it works virtually. I know it works with people who don't already know each other. I now have the confidence after those first 4 teams. I have the confidence to say, I know this works. I'd love you to be a part of it. I know it can be valuable for you and a wonderful, joyful place to go once a month. This is the commercial side of it. Can your organisation pay? Will you be joining us? So we bring that group together. We start them on their connection journey, and away we go. One group is now, they've just had their 45th session together.
Oh my goodness.
They've been for
That's a marathon.
Coming up for 4 years. The next question in my mind is, okay, if somebody leaves this group, these people have been together. They are tight as a community. How's it going to work if I drop someone in? My very first opportunity we introduced 2 new people to a group that had been going for 12 months already. We did the check-in. I mentioned we start with a check-in. The first guy I picked on is a guy called Peter. At the time, he's running a truck company, big trucks, lorries, manufacturer, distributor in Hungary. And he's been market leader for 12 consecutive years. Highly successful individual. So I open with him and say, okay, check in, how are you doing? And the first thing he says in front of his peers and these 2 new recruits, he says, Andy, team, I am so excited. He said, my friends have been trying to have a baby for so long, and they've just heard that she's fallen pregnant. They're going to have a baby. And I just thought, okay, thank you, Peter. You could have talked about anything. And that was the piece of news you most wanted to share with this team. And I thought, my work here is done in terms of right. Peter has, I hope you grasp the impact, the significance of, managing director chooses to share that piece of news in this group. I thought the tone is now set. That is what we talk about. That is the level of kind of sharing that we respect, we admire, we applaud. And then from there, I had no second thoughts about how this is going to work. And then on another occasion, I've had someone couldn't make the call because they were in another country. They were having an interview for a job and it clashed. But with half an hour to go, they joined the Zoom call. Hi guys, sorry to interrupt, but I've got to tell you this. The reason I couldn't be there this morning is because I'm in this country. You know the journey I've on. I have just agreed I'm going to move to this country and do this job. Wow. I haven't told my family yet. I needed to tell you guys. I've told my wife, but I haven't told anyone else. And I needed to tell you guys this is happening. So
that's amazing. Okay.
That's what we create. Let me tell you one thing about business, though. People have got the same issues. They're in completely different industries, in different countries.
We know.
And they've got exactly the same. The trending topics are the trending topics.
I think in 30 years in working in people and psychology, everybody says, my company is different. Have you got experience in this industry? And actually, I've learned that the problems are all the same. They come in different offices and they wear different suits and different outfits. So I couldn't support you more on that. If I can make an assumption, it may not be directly business related, but these are things that make people better at business. Because it's the stuff that steals their energy at night or the stuff that they cannot tell other people that stops them from performing at work. So in my coaching work, I see that if people can talk about their marriage, if they can talk about their unhappy relationship with their parents, it does free up some energy that they bring back to work and they have so much more presence to show up with. Am I taking this too far?
No, what I'd like to do though is add a little bit, because when we're discussing people's roundtable issues, they are business issues. We're experiencing a downturn. I've got more consultants on the bench than I've had ever before. This is happening. These are topics, they're very much around business issues. Okay. The reason I emphasize the more personal side of what we do is because I believe the work we do on the personal side, the fact that people will talk about their friends going to have a baby or their job moves and things, is that tells me that when they bring their business issue, they are bringing their most pressing business issue, even if they'd be embarrassed. Right. They'd be embarrassed to tell someone. So it enables that sense of connection, that humanity, that openness, vulnerability, enables them to bring the most important business topic to that part of our conversation, which is going to be 3/4 of the meeting, is going to be them talking about their business topics and getting input, questions and then suggestions from their peers. So they don't just come because it's nice. They come because at the end of the session they'll say, yeah, I'm taking away, that's been really helpful. I've taken away some really valuable stuff there that I'm going to go and do. I would just need to emphasize that.
I missed that. And I think just being a place where I can be myself and vulnerable would have been a win.
The mentoring you get is only as good as the topic you bring. If you don't bring your most pressing issue, you're not going to go away with a solution for your most pressing issue. You're going to go away with a solution for the issue that you were brave enough to bring or felt comfortable enough to bring. So there's method in this apparent, warmth and humanity that I absolutely adore. But there's a method is, no, I'm not interested in what your second, third, fourth pressing issue is. I want you to bring your biggest one that you're most concerned about. It's business-wise, it helps them move the needle and it motivates them to go back. They come in for 2 hours once a month. It's less than probably 1% of their month. So they come in for 2 hours, they take off their suit of armour and their mask, and they just, right, okay, guys, little huddle, I need some help with this. What have you got for me? Sometimes it's nice just to have a place where I can come and vent. Sorry to vent all over you guys, but I feel better now and I can go off and do another month of this and come back. It's oxygen. It's real valuable stuff.
I think the other part is also that you get to contribute, right? You can be the mentor. Is that
people love that.
As a participant, I get to give advice, or I get to contribute to somebody else's problem solution. That must be a kick by itself.
We love to help other people, don't we?
Is there something else that you want to tell? This is specifically aimed at coaches. I'm not sure who in your community would see this, but somebody who's a coach and who says, I either want to join a group like this, I want to start a group like this. Any concluding advice or anything that I haven't asked you that would be pertinent at this stage?
I would say, I mentioned earlier when I had this discovery that the coach didn't have to know what my challenge was or be an expert in my field in order to help me. If you're facilitating one of these sessions, and I can imagine possibly a coach having a reservation that, but I don't understand all the business issues that these people will bring. Your job is to facilitate the session. It's to curate the space and the time for them to have high quality conversations. Maybe invite them to speak first after you realise, this problem that's just been brought to the table, our team member is an expert in this, our other team member, so let's invite them to comment first. You don't have to have the answers. You have to be good at curating the space and the time, making sure they have quality conversations. I think there's two threads really. One is for coaches who want to do this, then we could possibly even talk more about how to do that. If there's someone listening who thinks I would love to be part of one of those teams, I'd like to be a participant. If you're thinking like that, there's a good chance you have got the right level of self-awareness and maturity and potential.
Absolutely.
So don't put yourself off. Don't sort of select yourself out of being in a team. Talk to us, and we can see whether that can be, whether it's a fit. So I'd hate for anyone to think, that sounds great, but he doesn't mean me. Talk to me, and we'll figure out if it's right for you. I'm not going to let anybody into something that they won't be, where they won't thrive. I'm passionate about helping people to. Why we shouldn't all be doing this on our own. Humans love connection. Through the 7 habits I learned, we go from dependence to independence, maybe as teenagers, but the goal is really interdependence, and that's where we really build strong, mutually beneficial relationships with others. And many of us, unfortunately, stop at independence and become heroic. I have a group of people who I do this with who are close to me, who I trust, who I can be very open with, and who know really good stuff and have got great valuable experience they can share. I could talk for hours. Awesome. Thank you for asking. I've really enjoyed it, as you can probably tell.
Thank you so much.
Thoroughly enjoyed your interest. So thank you, and let's keep the conversation going and seeing where it takes us and your coaches.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your story and even a little bit of your magic juice. So I think this is a great first conversation for our coach community, for our tribe, and I hope that this will lead to something interesting in the future, either people joining you or we having another conversation, or maybe somebody watching this starting out and taking that courage to try. So fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing, Andy.